Welcome to the Urban Herald. We're the team that takes a deep dive into the stories shaping our world. And today, we've got one that's, well, it's really astonishing, but also pretty cautionary. Have you ever thought about the Guinness World Records? They track all sorts of human achievements, but they stopped tracking the longest time without sleep. Why? Seems like a classic boundary to push, right? Well, it turns out the reason goes way back. Back to a high school science project in 1963. Sounds innocent enough, but it went spectacularly wrong. And maybe, paradoxically, spectacularly right, too. We're talking about Randy Gardner. He was just 17, living in San Diego. And he stayed awake for 11 days and 25 minutes. Just think about that. It didn't just break records. It completely changed how we understand sleep. And it showed some, frankly, horrifying truths about pushing our biological limits.
Exactly. And our mission today for this Urban Herald deep dive is really to get under the skin of the Randy Gardner experiment. We want to explore not just the feat itself, which was incredible, but what it meant scientifically. And maybe most importantly, why it's still so relevant today, especially in our, chronically sleep-deprived society. To do that, we've dug deep into the sources. We've got original scientific notes from the time, medical observations, historical accounts that really capture the feel of the 1960s, plus all the modern neurological research that's built on what happened to Randy. We're not just looking at what happened over those 11 days. We want to understand why it matters to you listening right now. It's a story about endurance, yes, but also about scientific discovery. And it's a really stark reminder of a biological need we often just ignore.
Yeah, and to really get why this experiment even happened, you have to picture 1963. It wasn't just any year, it was pivotal. Tumultuous, even. I mean, JFK's assassination was later that year. The civil rights movement was hitting its stride. There was this real sense of pushing boundaries everywhere. Teenagers, especially, were questioning everything. And this was also when record-breaking culture really took off. The Guinness Book of World Records was huge. Suddenly, ordinary people could become famous for doing extraordinary things, sometimes kind of weird things.
Randy Gardner's idea didn't just come out of nowhere. It fit right into that cultural mood, pushing limits, scientific curiosity, believing we could unlock new human potential.
And the media played a huge part too, didn't it? Oh, absolutely. TV was becoming common, bringing these dramatic stories right into people's living rooms. And radio DJs, they were like celebrities. They had this connection with listeners. So the idea of staying awake for days, broadcasting live, that actually captured the public imagination. Think about Tom Rounds. He was the DJ whose record Randy wanted to break, 260 hours. Rounds turned his own attempt into a media circus, broadcasting from a shop window, crowds gathering outside, watching him basically fall apart in public.
Oh, so it was almost entertainment.
In a way, yeah. And that whole context helps explain why Randy's parents, his teachers, even the early medical observers, why they were initially supportive. We look back now and think, how could they let him do that?
Right. The ethical concerns are massive by today's standards.
Exactly. But back then, the risks just weren't understood. Sleep medicine, it was barely a thing, maybe a decade old.
Yeah, the prevailing wisdom was, healthy young kids, especially teens, they can bounce back from anything. Just get some rest afterwards.
Right. The long-term damage, the neurological stuff, completely unknown territory. Okay, so let's unpack how this whole dangerous quest actually started. Picture it. December 1963. You're 17-year-old Randy Gardner. You're bright, curious, but totally bored by typical science fair stuff. Sprouting beans, mini volcanoes, no thanks. He wanted something big, something attention-grabbing. So he and his friends, Bruce McAllister and Joe Marciano, they initially had a more, let's say, reasonable plan.
Finally reasonable, yeah.
Right. They were going to study how lack of sleep affects cognitive skills, maybe even basketball playing. A solid, if ambitious, project. But then fate steps in. They see this newspaper article. It's about that local DJ, Tom Rounds, trying to break the Guinness World Record for staying awake 260 hours.
A light bulb goes off.
Exactly. Randy thinks, why not merge the science project with a shot at breaking the world record? Global fame. The stakes suddenly got way higher. And how did they decide who'd be the guinea pig?
A coin flip, wasn't it?
A coin flip. Randy lost, or maybe won, depending on how you look at it. And just like that, he committed himself to what became this incredibly harrowing but also incredibly revealing experiment.
A mix of teenage ambition, scientific curiosity, and maybe a bit of recklessness. And what's really crucial here, what makes Randy's case such a landmark, even with the ethical issues, is just how little we actually knew about sleep back then. Seriously, almost nothing compared to now. I mean, REM sleep, the dreaming stage that had only been discovered, what, 10 years earlier?
Only 10 years. Wow.
Yeah, so the idea that sleep was anything more than just passive rest, that was still pretty radical. The really critical functions, memory consolidation, how the brain cleans itself out, hormonal regulation, totally unknown.
So what tools did they even have to study him?
Well, EEG, electroencephalography, that was the main tool for brain activity. But it was basic. No portable monitors like we have now, tracking brainwaves constantly. It was pretty primitive stuff. Dr. William Dement, who later monitored Randy, he was a real pioneer from Stanford, just starting to establish sleep science as a legitimate field. His involvement gave us some of the first detailed notes on extreme sleep deprivation. But the setup, dangerously inadequate by today's standards.
Profoundly irresponsible, you'd say now.
Absolutely. And yet, the rules they did have were pretty strict for the time. No caffeine, no amphetamines, no chemical help at all.
It's just willpower.
Pretty much. Willpower, constant conversation, games to stay alert, and apparently some very cold showers.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much did they just not know, and how badly did they underestimate the risks?
It was a huge leap into the dark, fueled by curiosity and a real lack of data.
So let's talk about what it actually felt like. Day 1, December 28th, 1963. Surprisingly, for the first, say, 48 hours, Randa seemed okay. Remarkably okay, actually. You know, like pulling an all-nighter, tired, sure, yawning a bit, but nothing that screamed major biological collapse imminent. He was chatting, playing basketball even, kept his energy up.
Sounds almost manageable, doesn't it? Like a really bad couple of days without sleep.
Exactly. But then day 2 hits, and these little warning signs start creeping in. Subtle things that sleep researchers now would immediately see as red flags. He started getting more irritable. That's a classic early sign, right? Anyone who's missed sleep knows that one.
Oh yeah, very common.
His motor coordination started to slip a bit, just slightly clumsy. And here's a weird one. Problems with taste and smell. They blindfolded him, gave him common things to smell, and he could identify them, kept failing.
That's fascinating. A clear sign that sensory processing was already being affected.
Yeah, these were like the first tiny cracks appearing, the brain starting its slow protest.
And if we look at the neuroscience behind that, even those seemingly small symptoms, they were the surface ripples of major neurochemical changes kicking off inside his brain. We know now, within just 24 hours without sleep, adenosine starts building up. That's the stuff that makes you feel sleepy, like a waste product of brain activity. It just accumulates and accumulates.
Pressing down on the awake button, basically.
Exactly. At the same time, your stress hormone, cortisol, it starts going haywire. The whole fight or flight system gets thrown off balance. And key neurotransmitters, dopamine for motivation, serotonin for mood, they start fluctuating unpredictably. Their rhythm gets disrupted.
And modern brain scans show this stuff, right?
Absolutely. Even after just one night with no sleep, you see less activity in the prefrontal cortex. That's your executive control center right behind your forehead. Decision-making, rational thought, impulse control, it starts to go offline.
While other parts get overactive.
Right. The amygdala, the emotion and fear center, it gets hyperactive. And because the prefrontal cortex isn't regulating it properly, you get that irritability, the emotional swings, trouble controlling impulses. So even when Randy felt mostly okay, his brain was already in this internal battle, fighting itself.
Okay, so day 3. This is where things take a really dark turn. What started as just feeling tired, it morphed into something genuinely disturbing. Serious neurological distress. It was like the foundations of his thinking, his reality just started to crumble.
The cognitive decline becomes undeniable at this point.
Totally. He started having major memory lapses, not just forgetting small things, but struggling to even put sentences together properly. Basic math. Things he could normally do easily. Gone. Couldn't do it. His speech got weird too. Confused, disconnected. You'd ask him something simple and he'd just pause. Stare blankly for ages. Then maybe answer, but often forget the question halfway through.
Even the basic cognitive tests they did back then showed a dramatic drop in performance compared to before he started.
This wasn't just being tired anymore. This was his brain fundamentally changing how it worked, how it saw the world. Fragmented, disjointed.
And then, day 4, that's when they crossed a really terrifying line, the start of actual sleep deprivation psychosis. He began having hallucinations. And not just fuzzy vision or seeing shadows.
No, these were complex, immersive delusions. His reality was actively warping.
Right. It wasn't just brief confusion. His brain was literally creating its own reality, a nightmare version of deep exhaustion. There's that famous story where he became totally convinced he was a famous football player, lost his own identity completely.
And didn't he see a road on the wall?
Yeah, saw a painted road on the wall and started talking to it, like it was real.
Wow. How does science explain that now?
It's understood as the brain desperately trying to get into REM sleep, the dreaming stage, but while still technically awake. Visual cortex starts generating dreamlike images, but the brain's reality check system is failing, severely compromised.
Sleep deprivation psychosis, that's the term.
Exactly. It can happen to anyone after about 72 hours awake, but Randy's was extreme. And it wasn't just visual stuff. He'd burst into uncontrollable laughter for no reason. Observers said he seemed intoxicated or like he was on hallucinogens, but it was just pure exhaustion.
It really highlights the dangers, doesn't it? Even in less extreme situations today?
Absolutely. Think about doctors on those crazy long shifts, soldiers in the field, students during finals. They can experience milder versions of this cognitive impairment, these perceptual distortions. Randy's case was just amplified. A living, terrifying case study.
So day 5 rolls around. What does this cognitive breakdown mean for just functioning? His ability to communicate just collapsed. It became really clear how badly extreme sleep loss impacts mental health. This bright kid could barely finish a simple sentence. He'd start talking, then just trail off. Blank stare.
Like he forgot what he was saying or even why he was talking.
Exactly. And his short-term memory, pretty much gone. Couldn't remember what he did minutes ago. Just this constant, terrifying fog of confusion. But here's the paradox, the really weird part. Certain motor skills. Still surprisingly okay.
Ah, yes, the pinball.
The pinball. He could still play pinball, and apparently he was good. He even beat Dr. Dement, the Stanford researcher.
Which baffled scientists for years.
Right. How can you be so lost mentally, unable to think straight, but still have the coordination to play pinball well? It's such a strange disconnect.
Well, that disconnect, that selective failure, actually gave us huge clues about how the brain works under extreme stress.
Yeah.
Modern neuroscience explains it with this fascinating, maybe slightly creepy idea called local sleep.
Local sleep, like parts of the brain are asleep while others are awake?
Precisely. Some brain regions literally nod off while others struggle to maintain wakefulness. And the brain prioritizes. Areas like the motor cortex, the cerebellum controlling movement and coordination seem tougher, more resilient to sleep loss. But the prefrontal cortex for thinking, the hippocampus for memory, much more vulnerable.
So that's why he could play pinball, but not hold a conversation or remember things.
Exactly. The resilient parts kept the pinball going while the vulnerable parts were shutting down. And as he went through days 6, 7, 8, his psychological state got incredibly unstable, wild swings. He'd go from being totally apathetic, just sitting there, blank,
to sudden bursts of almost manic energy.
yeah, frantic energy out of nowhere. His friends and the researchers had to be constantly vigilant. Loud music, bright lights, physical activity, nonstop talking. Just trying to keep him tethered to reality.
And then the microsleeps started. That sounds terrifying.
It is. These are tiny, involuntary moments where parts of the brain just shut down, even if his eyes were open, even if he seemed awake.
He wasn't really there.
Not fully. He'd be unresponsive. These can last from a split second up to maybe 30 seconds. It's the brain essentially hitting an emergency override switch, forcing tiny bits of rest.
And the danger of that today is huge, right? Drowsy driving.
Huge. Microsleeps are behind countless accidents. Drivers, pilots, doctors, workers with heavy machinery. The brain just forces a shutdown, often with catastrophic results.
Yeah.
By this point, Randy couldn't name common objects. His speech was so disorganized, observers literally described him as dreaming all awake, stuck in this awful hybrid state.
Okay, days 9, 10, 11, the final stretch. And this is where the full horror really sets in. It wasn't just his mind anymore. His whole body was rebelling, a total system breakdown.
Yeah, the physical toll becomes overwhelming.
He developed really bad tremors. His hands were shaking visibly. Simple movements became hard. His vision got severely blurred, everything distorted. And his speech, almost gone. When he did talk, it was slurred, completely monotone. You had to practically drag responses out of him.
Just holding on to consciousness must have been agony.
And his attention span was basically 0. They did that test, counting backward from 100 by sevens.
A standard cognitive check.
Right. He got to 65, then just stopped. Blank stare. When they asked why he stopped, he said he forgot what he was doing. Forgot the task completely.
That's not fatigue. That's a fundamental collapse of cognitive processing. A medical emergency by any modern definition. And what's deeply disturbing, psychologically, is that alongside this physical collapse, the paranoia ramped up, which modern science understands as a direct result of this level of physiological stress. His brain chemistry was completely out of control. While we see the cognitive stuff most clearly, his whole body was suffering silently. We know now, extreme sleep loss devastates the immune system, makes you incredibly vulnerable to infections. It messes up metabolism, how your body handles blood sugar, nutrients, major disruption.
And the heart.
Huge stress on the cardiovascular system, blood pressure spikes, irregular heartbeats, really dangerous territory. Hormones go haywire too. Growth hormone for repair, cortisol for stress, total chaos.
And the paranoia you mentioned?
Yeah, that was chilling. He became intensely suspicious of his friends, the researchers, convinced they were trying to trick him, sabotage the experiment.
His personality completely changed.
Fundamentally altered. This curious teenager became confused, hostile, paranoid, just a shadow. That level of breakdown, psychological and physical, is exactly why we'd classify it as a severe medical emergency today.
And yet, he made it. January 8th, 1964. 264 hours, 25 minutes.
11 days, 25 minutes. A new world record.
And at the press conference, he apparently seemed lucid enough, but people close to him saw he was incredibly irritable, short-tempered. And then he said that thing later. I wanted to prove that bad things didn't happen if you went without sleep.
Tragically ironic, given what came next for him. The reality was so much harsher.
So the experiment ends. What happens immediately after? He sleeps, wakes up, seems okay. But was he really? This is where those hidden long-term effects start to matter, right?
Absolutely. The immediate recovery can be deceptive.
So he didn't just go home and crash. They took him to a naval hospital.
Right. To monitor his recovery sleep using the best tech they had in '64. Which wasn't much, but it was something.
And he slept for how long?
A solid 14 hours and 46 minutes straight. Then woke up naturally, seemed refreshed, stayed awake normally the next day.
Looked like a miracle recovery almost.
On the surface, yes. But underneath, we now know his brain was likely scrambling to repair significant damage. Back then, they didn't understand the impact on neural networks. Today, we know it was profound.
And they noticed something weird about his sleep pattern.
Yes, REM rebound. His REM sleep, the dream stage crucial for memory, went through the roof, way above normal levels. His brain was desperately trying to catch up on that specific stage, prioritizing memory consolidation, emotional processing, and that vital brain cleaning process.
Playing catch-up in overdrive.
And connecting that to the long term. Randy's own later struggles are just heartbreaking, a real cautionary tale. Decades later, he spoke very openly about developing chronic insomnia. It plagued him for years.
He couldn't sleep.
Barely. He said in an interview maybe 10 years before he spoke about it, he just stopped sleeping. He'd lie awake for hours, maybe get 15 minutes, wake up again. He called himself a basket case.
Can you definitively link that back to the experiment?
Scientifically, it's impossible to prove direct causation definitively. So many things affect sleep. But Randy himself felt it was direct karmic payback for what he did as a teenager.
And other cases have suggested a link.
Yes, modern research suggests extreme sleep deprivation can permanently mess with the brain's sleep regulation systems. It can cause lifelong problems. Randy's case, with the hallucinations, paranoia, cognitive breakdown, personality change, it's now seen as a textbook example of severe sleep deprivation psychosis. Its value was the detailed monitoring. It let science track the progression of these effects for the first time. It strongly suggests that even if you seem to recover fully right away, the biological system can be deeply, perhaps permanently altered.
And here's a kicker, Randy's record. It didn't even last that long.
No, the floodgates opened almost immediately.
Within weeks, sometimes days, others were trying to beat him. Drawn by the media hype, maybe thinking it wasn't that bad long term, someone named Jim Thomas beat it just 2 weeks later. Then a guy in Finland.
Yeah, it became a trend through the 60s and 70s.
Right up to Maureen Weston. In 1977, she did 449 hours. That's nearly 19 days. In a rocking chair marathon, apparently.
Unbelievable endurance, but incredibly dangerous.
Exactly, because as more people did it, the awful side effects, the lasting damage became impossible to ignore. There was Roger Guy English in '74, held the record briefly at 288 hours.
And suffered permanent hallucinations afterward.
Yeah, the Guinness Book entry even noted it back then, called it a very dangerous test,
Yeah.
and said he had hallucinations since. Chilling.
So what started as curiosity and maybe youthful ambition just spiraled.
Into a dangerous competition until Guinness finally had to say, okay, stop.
Right. That trend really forced a serious ethical conversation. By the 1980s, the medical community was much stronger, understood more about the brain. They started speaking out very forcefully. Sleep medicine was becoming a real specialty, and the evidence was piling up about the long-term harm, even from moderate sleep loss, let alone these extremes.
So organizations started issuing warnings.
big time. Groups like the American Academy of Sleep Medicine warned about lasting cognitive damage, severe psychiatric risks like psychosis, mood disorders, heart problems. The list went on. The final straw for Guinness seems to have been Robert McDonald in 1986, almost 19 days awake.
453 hours.
Yeah.
It's just staggering.
By then, the medical evidence was overwhelming. Encouraging this stuff was just irresponsible, dangerous. So in 1997, Guinness made that historic decision. No more sleep deprivation records. Full stop.
And the editor-in-chief, Craig Glenday, had that quote about sleep being fundamental, right?
Yeah, he said challenging something so absolute is key to understanding ourselves, but they had to stop monitoring it. They were getting reports of people trying it at home unsupervised.
Yeah.
Psychotic breaks, paranoia, physical collapse. No official deaths linked directly to the attempts, but the trauma, physical and mental, was just too high a price.
So it was a real ethical turning point.
Definitely. A watershed moment. Applying that first do no harm principle, even to record-breaking in research. Realizing some limits just shouldn't be pushed.
Okay, let's fast forward to now. With everything we understand today, Randy Gardner's experiment looks even more extreme and scary.
Oh, absolutely. Modern neuroscience has shown sleep is so much more than just resting.
What Randy went through unknowingly exposed these critical processes we now know are vital for survival. Basic maintenance, like the glymphatic system, the brain's cleaning crew.
Exactly. During deep sleep, it activates, flushing out toxic stuff like beta amyloid, the protein linked to Alzheimer's. Brain cells actually shrink temporarily, up to 60%, to let the cleaning fluid flow through and wash away waste.
So Randy's 11 days completely shut down that essential maintenance.
For a dangerously long time, potentially causing lasting damage.
It goes way beyond the brain, right? The whole body suffers.
Massively. Even missing just a few hours a night weakens your immune system, makes you more likely to get sick, reduces vaccine effectiveness. It disrupts hormones controlling blood sugar, stress levels, raising risk for diabetes, metabolic syndrome, triggers inflammation throughout the body linked to heart disease, faster aging, even some cancers.
Alters emotional regulation, increases depression, anxiety, risk.
And those microsleeps we talked about, the brain's emergency nap, still incredibly dangerous for anyone doing anything requiring focus, driving, operating machinery. And what's fascinating, linking back to Randy, is that his ordeal didn't just rob him of sleep. It completely destroyed his internal body clock, his circadian rhythm.
Threw his whole system into chaos.
Total chaos. And understanding that rhythm is key to why consistent sleep is so vital. Research into circadian rhythms has exploded. We know this tiny part of the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, acts as the master clock. It doesn't just control sleep-wake, it runs almost everything.
Like what?
Metabolism, hormone release, melatonin for sleep, cortisol for stress, growth hormone for repair, blood pressure changes, immune system activity cycles, digestion, even when you're most mentally sharp or foggy.
It times everything.
Precisely. Randy's experiment basically took a sledgehammer to that intricate timing system. Complete biological anarchy.
So, connecting this all back to us living today, Randy's story might seem extreme, a one-off, but the science, it hits home for everyone in our 24/7 world.
Yeah, very few people stay awake for 11 days straight, thank goodness. But chronic partial sleep deprivation, getting only 5 or 6 hours night after night instead of 7 to 9, that accumulates. And over time, it can cause disturbingly similar cognitive and health problems, maybe slower, more insidious, but still damaging.
And it's incredibly common, isn't it?
Depressingly common. Over a third of adults in many countries consistently don't get enough sleep. We're building up this massive sleep debt.
And we face challenges Randy never dreamed of.
Totally. Blue light from screens messing with melatonin, social media addiction keeping us scrolling, FOMO, fear of missing out, driving late nights, blurred work-life boundaries thanks to constant connectivity. It's a perfect storm for bad sleep, which makes that old hustle culture idea. Sleep is for the weak, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Not just wrong, but actively harmful.
Counterproductive even.
Completely. Randy's experience, backed by decades of research, proves the opposite. Your brain needs sleep to perform at its best. In everything. Forget the badge of honor. Well-rested people consistently outperform tired people. Better memory, faster thinking, smarter decisions.
Physically too, right? Better reaction times, coordination, fewer injuries.
Yep, emotionally. Better mood control, more empathy, stronger relationships. Creatively, better problem solving, more innovation. Sleep isn't a luxury. It's not laziness. It's fundamental, like air, food, water. That old mindset is just scientifically bankrupt.
And Randy's case also showed how vital support and monitoring are.
Crucial. He had a team watching him, keeping him safe, documenting everything. Contrast that with those dangerous, unsupervised home attempts later. It highlights the risks when you push these boundaries alone.
And thinking about teenagers today, Randy's story from 63 feels strangely relevant, doesn't it? Especially with the digital age.
Incredibly relevant. Today's teens face this unique storm of sleep challenges.
Things Randy never dealt with. Screens before bed, social media pull, academic pressure, weird schedules. It all disrupts their natural rhythms.
And the effects add up. Even just getting 6 hours instead of 8 or 9 night after night, it causes real cognitive impairment, mood issues, health problems over time. It's like a milder, chronic version of what Randy went through acutely.
And biologically, teens are wired differently too, right? Their sleep phase shifts later.
Exactly. Their internal clocks naturally want them to sleep later and wake later, but then early school starts force them up when they should still be asleep.
Add academic stress, tech addiction, FOMO.
And you get alarming statistics. Something like 70% of high schoolers don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
We basically have a generation running on fumes.
And the link between poor sleep and mental health is huge.
It's bidirectional. Poor sleep worsens things like depression and anxiety, and those conditions often disrupt sleep. Treating sleep problems can actually improve mental health significantly. It's foundational, which brings up that critical point for everyone, not just teens. The mind after midnight phenomenon. It asks, how often do we make important decisions or have difficult conversations when our brains are impaired by lack of sleep, and we don't even realize how compromised we are?
Because late at night, our judgment is worse.
Significantly worse. That executive function, emotional regulation, decision-making, they're all vulnerable late at night or when sleep-deprived, just like Randy experienced in the extreme. The consequences are real. More impulsive crimes happen late at night. Suicide risk peaks in the early morning hours when sleep debt is highest. Relationship conflicts flare up more easily when people are tired. Even things like cheating on exams become more likely when impulse control is low due to exhaustion.
Randy's ordeal was like an extreme window into that everyday vulnerability.
Hmm.
So, thinking hypothetically, if someone tried Randy's experiment today, which, again, would never be allowed ethically.
Absolutely not. Never.
But if they did, the technology we have now would paint a completely different picture, wouldn't it?
Oh, completely. We'd see the breakdown happening in real time with incredible detail.
Functional MRI scans showing which brain areas are shutting down or going hyperactive.
Exactly. High-density EEG, tracking sleep pressure, catching every single microsleep precisely, continuous monitoring of heart rate variability, stress hormones, inflammation markers, a full physiological picture.
Advanced computer tests measuring tiny dips in cognition. Eye tracking detecting attention lapses.
All of it. And crucially, these tools would almost certainly force the experiment to stop much, much sooner. They'd show dangerous levels of impairment and stress that just weren't visible or measurable back in the 60s. The science would be amazing, but the ethics make it unthinkable. And that ethical barrier itself is a huge part of the story's legacy. The fact that this could never happen today shows how far research ethics have come. Thanks to institutional review boards, human protection is paramount.
Balancing curiosity with welfare.
Exactly. That principle of first, do no harm is now deeply embedded in research, largely because of cases like Randy's that reveal the dangers. And looking globally, sleep challenges are everywhere, but they look different. You have siesta cultures, 247 societies, shift work economies. The impact of technology varies.
But the underlying problem is widespread and costly.
Hugely costly. The economic burden of sleep deprivation is astronomical. Billions in healthcare for sleep-related illnesses. Lost productivity, accidents from drowsiness, educational impacts. Randy Gardner's experiment was an early, stark warning of what's now a global health issue.
So as we wrap up this deep dive from the Urban Herald, Randy Gardner's story is just powerful. It's about endurance, yes, but it's mostly a cautionary tale. His experiment gave us priceless data on sleep deprivation, how the brain reacts, how recovery seems possible, but the potential cost. His decades of insomnia are this constant, sobering reminder that pushing biology that hard can leave scars, deep ones, that might take years to show.
And his case really did change things. It helped legitimize sleep disorders as serious medical issues. It pushed for stricter research ethics, raised public awareness, influenced medical training, even workplace safety rules about rest. And now, almost 60 years later, our understanding of sleep is just worlds away from 1963. Back then, sleep was just downtime, passive rest, brain off. Today, we know it's incredibly active, complex, critical, neural networks buzzing, hormones regulating, cells repairing, toxins flushing. Randy's story, in all its rawness, is maybe the best argument ever made for just getting a good night's sleep.
Not a luxury, but essential, like breathing.
Absolutely. The kid who wanted to prove bad things didn't happen without sleep. Tragically proved the exact opposite. Sleep isn't just important, it's critical for thinking, feeling, functioning, staying safe, staying healthy long term. In our crazy modern world, with all its demands and stresses, pandemic fallout, remote work issues, climate anxiety, politics, economics, his experience screams at us. Some records should stand forever, not as achievements, but as boundaries, lines that, for our own good, we shouldn't cross again. The real lesson isn't just about human endurance. It's about human wisdom, evolving ethics, having the courage to say, no, some things aren't worth finding out the hard way. So next time you're thinking of sacrificing sleep, remember Randy Gardner's 11-day wake-up call. Ask yourself, what record are you setting, really? And what's the potential price?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive from the Urban Herald. We really hope it's given you a fresh perspective on sleep, its power, and our own resilience and vulnerability. Please make your sleep health a priority. It truly matters. And if you are struggling with sleep, don't try dangerous experiments. Talk to healthcare professionals. There's real help available. Until next time, stay curious and seriously, get some rest.